Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at pitching on tonight's 9-game slate, and it's less than ideal.
Yeah, I think I'm even less in on the pitching than you are tonight, but yeah, it's certainly less than ideal.
Yeah, it's not a fun one. Cash game arms, it's pretty risky. Most of these guys usually have their kind of GPP tags on normal slates.
Yeah, there are a few decent arms, but at the same time, what we're kind of looking at for in terms of stacking and stuff, there's a lot of stackable offenses.
Yeah, and jumping to the first one here, Mariners and Pirates, Garrett Cole versus James Paxton. Seattle, has projected total under 3.5. Cole is a home favorite there, obviously, solid ballpark. Still, the Mariners are kind of a tough offense to target against with right-handed pitching, especially given that, really Cole hasn't been that great this year as far as scoring, upside-wise. He's been kind of limited just because the strikeout rate's been down. He's coming off a decent start against Philly, but obviously this is a completely different offense.
And as we saw yesterday with Liriano, a lot of things were sort of pointed in the direction of Liriano, but you still don't totally trust like starting studs or starting non-studs against the Mariners and their lineup. It just doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Obviously, Kyle Seager, Cruz, and Cano are always lurking. So I'm not in on Garrett Cole as more than a tournament play just because of Seager and Cano, really. The potential upside there and downside for Cole is not something I want to invest too much in.
Yeah, Cole, I'm looking at his FanDuel price, 8,500. I'm not really intrigued with him on there. And DraftKings is probably where the only part where it maybe gets me because he's 8,100. And if you are looking for maybe an SP2, I don't hate it. I don't think there is really much there. I don't think he has really a 20-plus fantasy point upside in him in this matchup. But I do think he can come away with a quality start and maybe pick up a win. But it's obviously just because of the slate and how it is. If this was a night where there's other pitchers on the hill, I probably wouldn't even be talking about Cole.
Right.
As far as Paxton on the other side, Paxton's kind of interesting for me in GPPs. You just kind of look at this Pirates offense. A really high strikeout rate against left-handed pitching. I know they are a top 10 WOBA team, but they really haven't played like it for about the last month and a half. I think Paxton could have a solid start in this friendly ballpark, and Paxton's been on and off for most of this year, but when he's been on, he's been really good.
Something stinks about this matchup for me. I just think this Pirates team is a bad matchup for Paxton. Obviously they're not projected for anything crazy, but I think it's going to be tough for him to get through this lineup, even though they have been struggling with all these righties, especially McCutchen and Marte. So I'm not saying Paxton's going to get shelled, but this does make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's nothing anymore for a cash game. It's just strictly GPPs for me. And I think I'm just kind of chasing the strikeout upside that could be there. Paxton's missed some bats. 12% swinging strike rate, and just looking at that Pirates 24% strikeout rate, there could be something in it. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Mariners came out and won this game either.
Right, definitely.
So, just a cheap EP guy for me. I don't mind the price tag on both sides. I think they're both definitely worthy of a look, just given the cheap price.
For sure.
Rockies and Orioles, John Gray versus Dylan Bundy. And John Gray, he's kind of a one who's site dependent for me. Obviously I don't mind him in GPPs just because there is strikeout upside there. But obviously the 10-5 price tag on DraftKings is a little heavier than I expected.
Yeah, I'm not diving into this one tonight. John Gray obviously coming off 2 great starts against the Braves, but that's not necessarily an indicator of anything against this Orioles team who has some solid righties. So I think this is an avoid, and I might even be stacking Orioles in a I don't know if it's even contrarian because I don't know how high the ownership's going to be for Gray, but I kind of like stacking this Orioles team.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of attacking Gray. I'm not a big fan of attacking Baltimore here either. I think this is one that's going to be kind of washed out for me. because I mean, I'm looking at Gray here. I mean, obviously there is blow potential just given that it's Camden Yards and this Baltimore offense can go off against any right-hander. But I'm also looking, I think John Gray could tame them. I mean, we've seen this Baltimore offense kind of falter here starting out of the break. I mean, they haven't really been great in scoring runs, even in this Colorado series where they haven't really faced anyone good. And this is the best pitcher that Colorado has to offer. So if it's anything like baseball usually goes, it'll mean that Baltimore probably goes off for 10 runs, while Chad Bettis and Jorge De La Rosa get the quality starts. But I don't mind it as a GPP option. I think there is some solid strikeout upside, just given that Gray misses a ton of bats and could come away with something here.
Yeah, I just worry about the Chris Davises of the world in that Orioles lineup. But yeah, definitely understood.
Yeah, and Chris Davis is a guy for me who could add 3 punch outs easily to Gray's total tonight.
That's also very true.
So it could go both ways there.
Right.
Dylan Bundy, I mean, 4K on DraftKings, facing a Colorado team outside of Coors. It's sort of intriguing for me just because he is super cheap. And this Colorado offense, I mean, they strike out more on the road. They're not that great of a team outside of Coors. And even in Coors over the last few weeks, they haven't been amazing. So I don't know. I kind of don't mind it as like a deep tournament play as an SP2. I think on FanDuel, I'm not touching them, but 4K on DraftKings?
Yeah.
It gets me thinking.
Definitely not bad. I mean, 4K is 4K, and in a matchup where the Orioles are minus 152 favorites, that's kind of intriguing. If you can get that win, I mean, hey, as long as he just doesn't get shelled, I think it's worth it. So, I'm kind of in on that in a deep tournament type of way, but obviously you're not expecting anything high upside. If he gets you 15, you're probably happy.
Yeah, I think 15. I mean, he's coming off a game where he got 22 against Cleveland. He's not going to pitch deep into games because he's not stretched out. But, if he does give you 5-6 innings at most there, a couple strikeouts, picks up a win and kind of limits damages and base runners, I don't mind it at 4K. I think it's obviously worthy of a look on a slate that really isn't that appealing for pitching.
Right.
Cardinals and Mets here, Adam Wainwright versus Logan Verrey. And I think Wainwright's going to be a guy who is probably considered cash on tonight's slate, just given he's going up against the Mets offense. It really isn't that great against right-handed pitching. He's just a small favorite. Once again, I mean, we saw this yesterday. The Cardinals really haven't been big favorites, even though pitching, I mean, kind of sets them up as what should be larger favorites.
The pricing in general of this game suggests something much different than what the Vegas suggests. So if you're with Vegas tonight, then you're definitely not touching any Cardinals, and you're definitely not sort of messing around with Wainwright. But I like Wainwright. I think this is a good matchup for him, and I do like him in cash. So I mean, it just depends on if you want to trust Vegas or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to overlook Vegas. I think sometimes it's a good indicator, but also I think we've questioned Vegas quite a few times and come away with some certain over-unders. I mean, generally, this one should be a low-scoring game. You kind of wish Wainwright did have a larger money line tied to his name, but he doesn't. I do see him coming away with a win here. Wainwright, I mean, over the month of July, ERA under 1, allowing a 240 WOBA. 25% strikeout rate. I mean, he looks like his old self again. And as you mentioned, I think cash game playable for sure on both sites. Not completely in love with the price tag on DraftKings at 10.9, but I think just given the slate, I think you got to kind of maybe own up and overlook the pricing there.
Right. Logan Verrey, 4K. Not a matchup I want to exploit. I think I'd rather go with Bundy.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement. If I'm going cheap pitching, it's definitely Bundy.
Right.
A's and Rangers, Darvish versus Sean Manaea here. And Darvish, obviously an intriguing option on tonight's slate. And I think just due to the fact that this slate is so poor for cash game pitchers, that Darvish is going to be a cash game guy for me. I mean, everything kind of checks off outside of the fact that he's not going to go 6+ innings. That's the only thing against him. But given his strikeout rate and what he can do there, and probably will get a win, he'll be fine for me.
Yeah, on a 9-gamer, you kind of just take that high floor and say, all right, well, this works. I'll find some value in the bats and hope this works out for me.
Yeah, and he looks like his old self. I mean, he's missing bats, 14% swinging strike rate in a couple starts this year. 35% strikeout rate. This A's team is bottom 5 in WOBA against right-handers. Never really worried about Darvish in Texas. I mean, maybe a couple balls can jump out at you, but he's done fairly well in Texas, so I really have no problem with using Darvish really in any format.
Definitely.
Moving on to the next game here, we got the White Sox and the Cubs.
And Manaea is not in play.
The quick transition, yeah, could have definitely led. Manaea, not a guy we're using.
No.
White Sox and Cubs here, Jason Hamill versus Anthony Ronaldo. And Hamill, I mean, once again, I'm not in love with the price tag, but I do think he tosses a quality start. And I do think he picks up a win here. I don't mind spinning down to him in cash on DraftKings. FanDuel, he's not really in play for me. I do think he has a quality start, though.
Yeah, you could hate start him against the White Sox. I think that would be a fun thing to do. But yeah, I mean, he's in for a potential victory just because of that Cubs offense, and I don't love the matchup, but at the same time, it's kind of like on this slate, he's probably about he's like third or fourth priced. I'd say that's about right. I feel uncomfortable with this price, at least on DraftKings, but at the same time, it's a good shot at a win here.
Yeah, it is. It's a good shot at quality starting to win. I think you got to like that for a little bit of safety on this slate. It's not obviously a great option. It's not a great price tag. I'll definitely fade in GPPs, but I think safety-wise, it's fine for cash.
Right.
As far as over on FanDuel, 8,800, I'm not a big fan of Hamill when you have McCullers sitting there for 300 more with much higher strikeout rate.
Yeah, that's a clearly better option. So not much debate there.
No, and as far as the White Sox goes, I mean, Ronaldo, I'm not really looking to use, even though he's cheap. I think we've already kind of established that if we are using a cheap guy, it'll be Bundy at 4K.
Right.
Braves and Twins, Tyler Duffy versus Mike Foltynewicz. And here, I think this is a game where I think there's actually could be some pitcher coming out of it as a relatively high scoring on the slate, or kind of shocking, type performance. And I think it's going to be Tyler Duffy. And I'm looking at the lineup for Atlanta. I mean, obviously it's pretty solid as far as left-handers go, but Duffy's been really tough on lefties. Righties is where he's been having his issues, and there's nobody here in this Braves lineup that really scares me off of him. So I think as a GPP play, I don't mind Duffy. Obviously, it's super deep and super risky.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. Like you mentioned, he does have some upside and should be in a good spot for a win. Obviously, Foltynewicz really struggling this year. So I do like that call. And it is super cheap, so you can fit maybe a Cub stack in there or something high end. But overall, yeah, just tournament throwaways for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Foltynewicz on the other side, I mean, you could argue the same thing, just given this Twins offense, 21st in the WOBA against righties, 22% strikeout rate. And Foltynewicz really hasn't been that bad. At an 8,600 price tag, am I in love with on DraftKings? No. And will I be using him on FanDuel? No. I think it's just the price tag. I don't think he has a bad start, but I think the price tag just catches me off.
Yeah, I'm not touching him at that price.
Yeah, no, I'm not either. Moving on to the Yankees and Astros and Lance McCullers versus Masahiro Tanaka. And I think both these guys are intriguing GPP options on tonight's slate. I mean, McCullers, I would love him to be cash, but I think just the walk rate for me is way too high. There's always that potential that he just has a really, really short outing. But I like McCullers a lot here.
On this slate? So you'd rather Wainwright than McCullers?
No, he's a guy who I would like to be cash, but he's just not quite there yet, just given the walk rate. So he's just GPP for me.
On DK?
On both.
Oh, okay. I think he's cash for me. I'm not too afraid of this Yankees lineup, even with the lefties. It's just not there's not really a lineup that scares me. Obviously, there is that risk that they have one of those good days, but those have been far and few between in 2016. So I kind of like the upside there. I do prefer Wainwright a little bit, but I think they're both kind of moving around in cash for me.
Yeah, he's that guy. I mean, he's just teetering on the fence for tonight's slate for me, as if I can trust him. I mean, obviously he's been great this year. I mean, 8 of 12 starts this season, 8 or more strikeouts. But he also has that those times where he doesn't pitch deep into games, only goes 4 or 5 innings. If he doesn't have that strikeout rate going, it's not good. And I'm just not a big fan of the 14% walk rate. I guess that's what I'm a little uneasy about in cash games. But as you mentioned, I mean, I'm not afraid of this matchup with the Yankees either. He's been tough on lefties going back to last year. And obviously that strikeout rate, I know the Yankees don't strike out a ton, but McCullers, whiff rate against lefties has been over 30%.
Right.
So to knock on the other side, I mean, I don't mind him either. I know this Astros team does have some pop, but obviously they do have a high strikeout rate. So I could see Tanaka being possibly a guy who's probably a little bit boomer bust tonight, and he might be a swerve off of McCullers, who I think everyone's kind of going to be on.
Yeah, I like that call too. He has a nice swerve. Not quite cash for me, but I think he is a really solid tournament play.
Yeah, definitely. I think there definitely could be something there. So I think with that game in general, I mean, it kind of washes out a lot of hitters.
Right.
Diamondbacks and Brewers, Jimmy Nelson versus Archie Bradley, and I don't know what to make of this. I feel like there could be some strikeout upside really on both sides here. You look at Arizona, I mean, 23% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. You look at the Brewers, 26%. So it's up there on both sides. I mean, could it be deep GPP for both these guys? I mean, I think they're kind of similar arms and have similar possible blow-up potential.
I don't think I can get behind Bradley. It's been a minute before he's had a good fantasy outing. But both these offenses are slightly vulnerable. I think I'd prefer Nelson. But yeah, I think I'd prefer Nelson if I had to pick between the two, and he's more of a deeper GPP play.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there as far as going with Nelson. He is a guy who has shown off some upside this time, but obviously not a good floor. I mean, neither of these guys have good floors, but
No.
Nelson, I mean, his struggles mainly come with left-handers, and given the fact that Arizona could be without Jake Lamb, they really don't have anyone that scares me away from the left side. It could be a heavily right-handed lineup again.
Right.
So it could be something there for Nelson. Could be a deep GPP play. As you stated, not a cash game guy by any means.
No. Yeah, overall, I think you're cautious with that, but maybe if you're making a bunch of lineups, you can throw a Nelson, Bundy, and just all-star squad out there.
Yeah. Angels Royals, next one here, Danny Duffy versus Matt Schumacher. Actually, Schumacher could be a guy who I don't mind in GPPs, but more so on FanDuel. 8,500 there, not a bad price tag for him. DraftKings, it's a little higher than I like, but obviously I do think there is some upside. This Kansas City offense really isn't quite the same as what it used to be.
Oh, there's definitely upside, but there's also the Royals are annoying to start pitchers against. I mean, even this year they haven't been that great, but they still chip away at you. And Schumacher obviously pitching well, but not quite on that super hot streak that he was a few weeks ago. So I do like Schumacher, but I think I prefer some of the other guys we talked about in cash. He's probably like a first-tier tournament guy.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Just a tournament guy for me, and definitely kind of one. Him and McCullers, if I'm paying up in GPPs, it's going to be for them too in tournaments.
Yeah, right. I think, they're on a very similar grouping for me.
Yep, no, I definitely agree. And as far as Danny Duffy goes, I mean, coming off a strong start against Texas, I mean, he's been remotely solid. That strikeout rate continues to be there. Although the Angels don't strike out a ton against left-handed pitching, and they do rank in the top 10, I do think Duffy kind of comes down and has a decent start. I don't mind him on DK. I don't find myself using him on FanDuel, but 8,900, given that the price has come down, I don't mind it.
Duffy's kind of turned himself into a high floor type of guy, which I appreciate. It's much different than what we were seeing earlier in the year, but we'll definitely take it. I don't mind this against the Angels, who are pretty inconsistent. I mean, other than Trout, so pretty good matchup for him. And could be a nice swerve because I'd imagine more people are going to be off Schumacher. or
Yeah, I
on
think
Schumacher.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, you look, he's pitched deep into games as far as getting into the sixth and keep working. And you look at that Detroit start. I mean, worked into the seventh inning, gave up four earned, but seven strikeouts and a win. I mean, that's pretty solid. I mean, that's kind of what you want to see out of pitchers at times is if they do get in a little bit of trouble, that they back it up with some strikeout upside.
For sure.
So, I mean, given that we haven't really been on Danny Duffy of late just because the price tags have been ridiculous at times. So, I think tonight's a night in the slate where you can kind of stomach it a little bit more.
It really has been ridiculous. But it seems it's down to a
Appropriate.
place where I feel okay with it again.
Yeah, definitely. And so overall, I mean, I think in that ballpark in that game, you could get two pitchers that kind of really stifle some offense.
For sure.
That's going to wrap things up here at the Pitcher Nail Down. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for all great tools and content.